Okay to go in?
Are we live?
Okay, well, yeah, yes.
Good afternoon. Welcome to this meeting of the Rehoboth Beach Planning Commission on May 5th, 2023 at 2 p.m. Would I ask the Secretary please to call the roll?
Commissioner Dewey,
Present.
Commissioner Ellison,
Here.
Commissioner Gay,
Here.
Commissioner Hunter is absent, out of the country. Commissioner Stewart,
Here.
Commissioner Stockdale,
Here.
Commissioner Strange,
Here.
Commissioner Davis is here. Commissioner Chair Bryan.
Here. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We have a quorum. Ms. Womack, would you please let us know about the verification of meeting notice, please?
The agenda was published in City Hall and on the city portal on April 26th. It was amended and reposted on the 27th and amended again on May 4th and reposted on May 4th. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you. Any correspondence?
No, I haven't received it.
All right. The only matter on the agenda today is the continuation of preliminary review of site plan review application number 1221-05 Belhaven Hotel. And this is a continuation from the previous meeting. We wanted to keep the docket open to give the applicant as much time as they can to address the Planning Commission and provide the information that we're looking for. I would remind everyone that the purpose of a preliminary review meeting, and that's what this is to receive preliminary input from city officials, nearby property owners, and the public, and to determine whether additional information is needed from the applicant or others, and whether there are legal or factual issues that need further clarification prior to final action by the Planning Commission at a subsequent meeting. This is not a public hearing. No final action will be taken at this meeting. The Planning Commission will schedule a public hearing on this project when appropriate. The Planning Commission will not need to and should not reach any ultimate conclusions regarding code compliance at this time. It is important that the Planning Commission, we maintain and we will maintain an open mind regarding this project's viability and code compliance. You can, as members of the Planning Commission, and should ask appropriate questions, particularly with regard to threshold issues such as whether the applicant intends to seek variances in terms of coming into bringing their project forward. Having said that, could I please have the report of the building inspector and Wallace Montgomery? Any update?
No update at this time, Chair.
Are all the plans that you have filed in your office complete?
I would say not at this time.
Okay. Mr. Wall, from Wallace Montgomery, any update on your plan that report that you previously filed?
Yes, we had some additional follow-up with one of our sub-consultants, Strawn Environmental, regarding the floodplain regulation.
Is it a written report?
No, it's not. I've provided verbal to you at this time if that works, or I can follow up with written.
I'd rather see the written report so that there's no issue about who said what and who heard what.
Certainly, certainly.
Okay. When do you think that might be?
I can send it to you about 20 minutes.
Okay. You'll send the request.
Yes.
You gentlemen, both Wallace Montgomery and the building inspector, filed a joint report dated April 10, 2023 on this application. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. The applicant, who would like to come forward? Mr. Dukes?
For the record, my name is Hal Dukes from the law firm of Tull and Razor, and we're continuing the preliminary meeting from last month. I have been able to review everything with my staff, and in the course of events, they're ready to make a complete presentation today to complete this. First, I want to thank,
Get closer to the microphone there.
yes. Okay.
Can you bring it closer to your mouth?
Okay.
so we can
I want, okay. I want to thank Commissioner Bryan. He's been remarkably helpful in providing us with basically a list of things that the commission would look for. And we are able to review those items and be able to provide answers to all of the questions that Commissioner Bryan was able to bring forward. So in that regard, rather than take a lot of your valuable time with rehashing, I'd like to present
I'm
our
sorry, but I cannot
engineer
hear you.
and our designer, Mr. Peter Fillet.
Yes, now I would note that the latest response, and it's not anyone's fault, but we've had a sequence issue here that our meeting this month is just a short time, it takes place just a very short time after we received the response. Again, there's no fault on when the response was made, but I doubt seriously that the members of the Planning Commission have had a good opportunity to go through those. And you may well find that the applicant may want to review again and perhaps update if necessary, maybe not. But there has been a timing issue here that this meeting occurred very quickly after the last filing of a response from the applicant was received. So I just point that out.
That's correct. And Commissioner Bryan was kind enough to send a correspondence to us shortly after the meeting with some terms and conditions that he thought was appropriate for this. And we're now in a position to answer all of these items. Our position today is that this plan is code compliant, and it meets the criteria established by the code of the city of Rehoboth Beach. We have answers for all of the questions that were basically promulgated by Commissioner Bryan and you folks at the last meeting. And I think we're in a position to go ahead and make a presentation today. I would prefer, rather than me make the presentation, is to have the people who actually did the calculations and the drawings make the presentation, because they're the ones who have designed this project. And I think you should hear it straight from the horse's mouth.
Very good. Mr. Flott, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be back. Again, very
Do you-
excited here to be here today to clarify and present the design in response to the comments that we've received. And on the board here is a synopsis of the issues that were presented in the April 26th letter from Chairperson Bryan to Mr. Papajohn and Mr. Dukes. And in particular, they're in order. We numbered them. And so I'm just going to, some of these I'll read and some of them I won't, because some of them I have to read. Some of them I don't. In regards to the off-site parking on Baltimore Avenue, the comment was in view of the code's definition of dwelling and prior applications of the code. To begin with, we observed that the city's prior building inspector told the design team and the ownership team that the off-site parking could be used for a hotel. In reviewing the city code, we note that the definition of hotel, motel, or inn refers to hotels containing living units, not dwelling units. Thus, the code appears ambiguous and under Delaware law should be interpreted in favor of the property owner. However, in the interest of time, we will go back to the original plan, and we're going to provide all our parking on site, showing two levels of parking. Actually, it's a level and a half. And let me add that I'm going to go through these bullet points, and then I'm going to show you the drawings. Okay, so you know, it'll be a complete presentation, and we can talk about it afterwards. Item number 1B, in view of the distance between the principal point of pedestrian access and the proposed Baltimore Avenue parking lot and the principal entrance of the proposed hotel. The proposed lot on Baltimore Avenue is less than 700 feet maximum distance between the proposed lot and the principal entrance of the hotel. Regardless, this issue is moot, and with the additional level of parking below grade on site. Gross floor area. In view of the proposed average gross floor area of levels 2 to 4 of the proposed hotel, in parentheses, 50% of the gross lot area. The project received a variance to increase the FAR from 2.0 to 3.0, a 50% increase. Implicit in the granting of the variance is a similar variance for individual floors, as it is otherwise impossible to have a 4-story structure and a 3 FAR and have an average floor for levels 2 to 4 not exceed 50% of gross lot area. Example, if we have 100% for the first floor and 50% average for the second, third, and fourth floors, this equals only 250%, i.e. a 2.0 FAR. Therefore, the variance also means the average floor area ratios can be exceeded, or the variance is meaningless. Accordingly, the average FAR ratio for the second through fourth floors should also be proportionally increased and would become a 75% average. In fact, the plans submitted with the application show an average of greater than 50% FAR for floors 2 through 4. And the variance application indicated it was seeking relief from section 270-21 of the code, which covers not only the FAR for the property, but also the average FAR requirements. In view of the proposed, item number 2B, in view of the proposed gross floor area and level 2 of the proposed hotel, not greater than 75% of the gross lot area. The gross floor area of level 2 minus the 5,000 square feet for meeting rooms, code 270-21, point B, parentheses 5, parentheses B, is 26,106 square feet, which is 67% of the gross lot area. Regardless, and obviously is less than 75%. Regardless, the grant of the variance increasing the FAR to 3.0 means that the FAR for the individual floors is increased as previously explained, and the original plan submitted with the variance application showed the second floor FAR in excess of 75%. Item number 3. In view of the building official's square footage calculations in regards to the number of loading berths. The loading berth requirement applies only to the hotel and not the total square footage of the building. Only one loading berth is required for a hotel less than 100,000 square feet. The hotel gross square footage is 95,753 square feet, plus or minus. Loading berths are not required for any commercial unit less than 15,000 square feet in code 270-36. As all commercial retail units are less than 15,000 square feet. So no berths are required for them, and one berth is required for the hotel. We are providing one berth. In regards to the parking turning aisles, and in view of the proposed width of the turning aisles for both the proposed Baltimore Avenue lot and the underground parking garage, our revised plans for the parking were submitted to the building inspector on 4/25/2023. We show angled parking, which is allowed to be 20 feet aisle width if less than 75%. We have redesigned the building so that the parking spaces are 74.5 degrees, and they are in compliance with this requirement. And I'll show you the plans on that. Height and step back line. In view of the height calculations set forth in the city's April 10th, 2023, the elevation drawings had an inconsistency that has been corrected. The building height and cupola have always been code compliant in this set of documents. Revised drawings correcting the discrepancy were submitted to the building inspector on 4/25/2023, and this should no longer be an issue, and I'll show you that in the plans when we go through them. In view of the proposed balcony overhangs vis-a-vis the 30-degree angled step-back requirement, The canopies are not buildings, and it was our hopes that we would not have to include them in this step-back requirement. And we would like to have a conversation about that, in that it is not a written item in the code. However, the plans will show you, if needed, that along the boardwalk, we plan to reduce the overhangs to 2.5 feet from 5 feet. That will fall within the, behind the 30% requirement, 30-degree requirement. And along Wilmington Avenue, we would take the awnings off if it's the prerogative of the building inspector and this commission. And we'll show you what both of those options look like. You guys can decide. There is some level of ambiguity here, but if required, we'll do it. No problem. Bar areas. In view of the city code's definition of bar area and restaurant, we do not believe that, where am I here? Shoot. We do not believe this is a proper issue or site plan review item, but is properly handled as part of the building code review, for instance, of the building, for issuance of the building permit. Regardless, the lobby bar is part of the lobby restaurant and is the same business. It will be operated by the same entity, and as such, it is not a standalone facility. The fourth floor fourth floor bar will serve food and has a greater seating capacity than 35 people. Lot coverage. Whether the applicant contends that the applicable restrictions under City Code 270-21C with regard to the ground level of the proposed building structure is 50% of the lot area and 100% of the net lot area, or some other calculation, in each instance, the basis of the applicant's contention. The building is a commercial mixed-use building containing retail shops and a full-service luxury hotel. The hotel lot, the allowable lot area coverage is 100% for commercial use, and the hotel portion is less than 50% coverage. The square footage of the ground floor of the hotel is less than 50%, so this complies. Number of loading berths. Independent of the square footage calculation for hotel space, whether the applicant contends or disagrees that a loading berth is required solely based on the square footage of the proposed retail space on the ground level. Retail spaces are less than 15,000 square feet, and as such are not required to have loading bays. Coastal building line. Am I skipping anything? I know I'm bouncing around. I apologize. It's a little squirrely. Coastal building line. Does the applicant intend to obtain a letter of approval from DENREC Shoreline and Waterway Management Section, and if so, when? Yes, the applicant will comply with all other applicable legal requirements. Cupola. What is the intended use and purpose of the proposed cupola? The cupola is a decorative feature meant to recall the iconic green hip roof of the historic Belhaven Hotel, which was located on this site from 1898 to 1964. It is, in a way, one of the defining elements of this design, and it's something we feel very proud to be a part of and proposing in this solution. It is a nod to a sense of continuity in the Rehoboth landscape. The intended method, and if any, by which access to hotel guests to the interior of the proposed cupola would be prevented. The cupola is not open, it's not accessible to hotel guests, it is not an occupiable space. The intended interior ceiling height at its highest point and interior square footage of the proposed cupola. The interior ceiling height is 5 foot 6.25 inches per the building section submitted in the application. The intended use and purpose of the proposed antenna. The antenna is a weather station. Lot consolidation. When does the applicant intend to formally consolidate the various lots of the code? Lot consolidation will occur concurrently with the final site plan approval. ADA compliance. There were comments on the ADA space locations in regards to where the elevators are in view of the distance of the proposed spaces number 6, 7, 11, and 12 from the proposed elevator bank and the proposed underground parking garage. These spaces, we've redesigned the garage, and we'll show you that in a minute. It's per the plans that were submitted for 25-23 to the building inspector. The intention to obtain plus review for current plans. The comment is, in view of the OSP's Office of State Planning's October 19th, 2021 stated concerns and statement that additional changes to the plan could result in additional comments from the state. The quote-unquote stated concerns language is included in every plus letter. The changes made to date are non-substantive, and in conversations with the office, and we've had conversations with the State Office of Planning, they have indicated that the changes to date do not warrant for a further plus meeting. Indeed, the site plan itself remains unchanged. And then lastly, how the proposed plan has changed over the past several years. Substantially, the plan has not changed very much over the past few years since the building was originally submitted in 2019. The room count is the same. Commercial and retail space is virtually the same. The only real change is that the second level pool, when we had presented it originally, was along Wilmington Avenue. And we moved that pool to the middle of the building where there's a courtyard. And we've moved the guest rooms to the south wall. So now I'd like to just go through the drawings, which is always more fun. This set of drawings has been revised to acknowledge today's date, and so it's dated 5/5. I'm sorry. So this supersedes all the other stuff that we just recently sold. Yeah. This is it, right? So you'll see on this plan in particular that in this drawing right here, there is no location of the Baltimore Avenue lot. This is the site. This is the entire site. Okay. And in this plan, we also respond to various aspects of the of the points that were discussed earlier. The gross area of the hotel is 95,753 square feet, including balconies, terrace, and conference space. And that is excluding the retail, and the requirement there is 1 berth for loading, okay? In terms of the parking requirement is the same at 121 spaces, but there will be a Belhaven garage underground. It'll all be there, 125 spaces, okay? So I'm going to go through the drawings here and just, we will, this is something that's fairly technical, but if you look here, all of the drive aisles it's a one-way system with a 20-foot wide drive aisle, and the parking spaces there, as you can see, is 75.75% degree spaces, okay? 74.75 degree spaces. In particular, then, in response to the comments in regards to the ADA spaces, these are the ADA spaces here, the ADA van spaces there, another ADA space there, all of which are connected to the lobby of the hotel. So, we listen, we want to get this thing done, so we're responding positively to the comments that were received. This also shows that the ramp comes down here. The ramp continues down to the lower level of parking, which contains about, let's see how many spaces it says. I think it's 25 spaces below grade, but I'm sorry, it's more than that. It's actually 35 spaces below grade. We are now at 125 total, and the requirement is 121. So we have 4 extra spaces. There's really no major change to this. Again, we still have only one loading dock. We still have everything about this plan is pretty much the same. There's an area summary here that addresses some of the issues of lot coverage, even though we've kind of covered them already, but they're just there for reference. Not so exciting. Again, this is the same second level plan, very similar. What has been done is the kitchen was taken out of the ballroom calculation as recommended by the building inspector, and the pre-function space was enlarged to accommodate the 5,000 square feet of deduction and allowable requirements. Let's see here. No substantial change to the third level plan. And the only change on the fourth level plan is that because of the setback requirement along Wilmington Avenue, these balconies along Wilmington will be 3.5 feet deep as opposed to 5 feet deep. Building is similar, roof is very similar, okay? So in particular then, this is the kind of thing I want to talk about, and I'm hoping that my fellow architect will be able to help me here. What we've done here is we've really just kind of shortened this portion of the awning to stay within the 30-degree setback here. Everything else on this elevation complies. We also have changed the note so that it says 50%, 50 feet above the BHMP, which is the building height measuring point. So there's no question as to what's 50 feet and what's not. Building height measuring point is about, it's 12.73, elevation 12.73. The ground floor of the building is elevation 13.
I'm sorry, what was that number?
Elevation 13. Let's see here. No major change to this elevation. And then this is really the elevation that sort of shows where we have lowered the awning canopy in front of the ballroom, so it's a little shorter. We've eliminated the canopy. This is the Wilmington Avenue here, so we've eliminated the canopy facing Wilmington Avenue. And I also would like to say that this awning is also an important part of the sustainability goals of the project. As you can, one of the best things about this building when we modeled it was that all of the windows were covered by either a balcony or an awning. And if we have to live with this, again, somewhat ambiguous requirement, we'll lose those coverage on this side, which is the south side of the building, unfortunately, as life would go, you know. So, but that's why we want to talk about it here today, because perhaps there's an opportunity to find another way there. We're not going to reduce the size of the building, and everything else stays the same. So here again, you can see it. This is the same section that shows the 30-degree setback. This is actually the other side. So Wilmington Avenue is on the left here, and the building, so it's looking to the west as opposed to the elevation, which was looking to the east. And this also shows you how the second level of parking works, partial level, as you can see here. So that's the design. And on the other side, you can see the full 5-foot awnings fall within the 30-degree setback. So, and we like the aesthetic of it, and we also like the energy savings aspects of it. Okay, so lastly, I would be remiss not to actually really spread my case here. This is the design as we presented last month with the awnings facing south. These are those sort of, really nice, add character. And then this is what the building will look like without those items. And so it's just a stark contrast between one and the other. And it's very, it's easy to see on this elevation the most. and I'll show you the rest of it, so you'll say, well, it doesn't make a difference over there, but it does make a difference here. So here, this is the south elevation. Again, the awnings and the canopy over the rooftop bar cafe. And then this is what it would look like without it, right? So you can sort of see the, sort of, it's a little more barren looking, and obviously the heat gain would be substantially greater on these upper level units than they would be here. As a matter of fact, you can see the shadows here, how beautiful that is, versus not there. On the other sides of the building, it's not quite as apparent. We are going to still keep these because we think it's a defining character of the. So this is the 2.5-foot awning here, and this is the 5-foot awning there. Not quite as elegant, not quite as interesting, but it's still something we would like to keep. We will keep. We'll be able to keep. Okay, this is another. This is the full 5-foot awning along the boardwalk, and you can see it's sort of consistent down the entire building. And then here it is. It's a little bit, it's, you know, like I said, my colleague, the architect, will be able to have a stronger sense of this than perhaps most lay people. Okay, here's a view from the top. This is the shorter awning. This is the larger awning. This is a view as presented at last month's hearing, with the awnings face to the south elevation and the shade device over the cafe, rooftop bar cafe. And then here's what it would look like if it had to be eliminated. Again, a couple more, beautiful views of our project, which we're super excited about, as you can imagine. This is, again, the 2.5-foot awning along the water's edge. And this is the more proportionally elegant solution. And again, this is the 5-foot awning. And lastly, this is the 2.5-foot awning. So that concludes my presentation. And I'm happy to answer any questions and follow up with any conversations you'd like to have.
If I may interrupt, sir.
I'm finished.
No, but I mean, I'd like to go back to the building inspector for just a moment.
Sure.
Nick, in view of what has been discussed here today about putting a second, it sounds like a partial underground parking floor, maybe Strawn Environmental, the sub-consultant, should be advised of that before they put more work into a building that only has one floor underground, and before they issue their report.
Yes, but I think.
Excuse me, but did you ask that to the building inspector?
I'm asking that to him, yes, sir, because he's in touch with the sub-consultant doing the environmental study. Planner. I'm sorry, the planner, sorry.
Thank you.
The planner.
What was I saying? Yeah, yes, so the consultant would absolutely like to have this additional information. However, I think that we're still going to be in the position we are now, where we're looking for a level of detail regarding the flood-proofing design elements that they propose to use, as well as discussion and analysis of the hydrostatic forces. In review of the previous geotechnical report that they provided, which we do appreciate you providing, it does not address the actual analysis of the subsurface water forces that are at play here. It mentions them in passing, but does not say more than that. So basically, it gives us a starting point, but that we can't make any definitive analysis until we have the whole of the information available to us.
Very good.
Thank you.
Mr. Flott, anything else?
No, thank you.
Members of the commission? Mr. Strange?
Couple of simple questions.
Speak into your microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. Your reference to the Baltimore parking lot, which we just got drawings on a couple of days ago, is now ceases to exist in any way, shape, or form.
At this point in time, yes.
Right, so that's gone. Okay. At this point in time, is that, it may come back, or?
We're here talking about this item right now.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, that, because I'll advise you anyway, in the latest drawing that you gave us on that lot, the drawing was 3/4 of a foot wider than the actual physical lot. So it's the same error that's propagated 3 times, and I just want to bring that to your attention, because your lot that you're proposing is 1/3 of a foot wider than the 100-foot is of the actual lot. But now that it's not in the game plan, it's not in the game plan at the moment.
Precisely.
The other is just a question. In the documents you did provide, there was a reference to an alternative design was approved on 4/17/2023 by the State File Marshal. There was nothing in your packet that we got that included, what is that? I guess is what I'm asking. Is that this, or
It is this,
that's this design?
yes.
Okay, so we're going to be getting that with engineering size drawings eventually.
This design here?
Beg your pardon?
This design here?
Well, yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, sure.
and that's the one that this is referring to, that was submitted to them.
Correct.
Okay. And forgive me, I'm not sure I'm being clear for myself even. That design as such was approved by the fire marshal, state fire marshal, and therefore his comments or his recommendations are in a report that's will be available to us, or was that even available to you yet?
I believe we got a letter from him. We didn't get a report. So
Okay.
we got a letter that said this approved as per the communications and submission.
Okay, because in there, I mean, there's certain things that in state fire marshal's approval, that somewhere in there will be statements such as the maximum capacity of the building is X, and the maximum capacity of particular rooms are Y.
I can show you the state fire marshal letter if you'd like to see it.
Well, eventually, it needs to be part of the record, so I'm asking, because it wasn't in the original package, and that's one of the things that's needed to do our due diligence when we finally move to the next phase. So that was that. Well, since the Baltimore Street is off, I have no further questions with regard to that. And I guess what I would say is now with this new information, which thank you for providing it today, that we'll need either D or E size drawings that you had before so we can actually see them and make determinations of what it is. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Ms. Gay?
Yeah, I have a couple questions about lot coverage. Thank you for the presentation. That was very helpful. And I saw on the materials we did get that you had recalculated the lot coverage for every floor. And I guess I just wonder what the recalculation consists of. Since you're now maintaining, it does meet the requirement for 50%. That is what you're maintaining, right? That you recalculated the numbers from what we had before, but I couldn't tell what was included and not included in that recalculation. For example, the first floor, you now have as 16,682, when by my calculations is 18,534. I just couldn't tell what was left out.
I believe the loading dock. The loading dock.
Okay, but the loading dock is not part of the hotel?
It is included in the $16,000 number.
It-
And it is part of the hotel.
No, I'm asking, when I subtract the retail space from the total space, I get 18,534, not 16,682. So I just wondered what else was left out. Like whether the restaurant was left out or I couldn't tell. I just don't know how you came up with the number. The same question applies to the other floors. In other words, before, your previous calculations showed the average lot coverage to be 67% for all the floors, and now you're showing it to be 49.9. I just don't know where those numbers
Yeah, so
came from.
in this diagram here, it says hotel lot coverage summary.
Yep, I'm looking at that.
Areas are enclosed conditioned space only and do not include balconies, terraces, and conference space. So in these numbers here, the total that is 76,923. They do not include the balconies, terraces, and conference.
So you maintain that lot coverage does not include a balcony?
So if it were per the previous code, it would not be included. So, and irrespective of this, the variance allows for greater lot coverage.
Well,
by its
I saw that you were making both arguments, but I also saw that you redid the calculations to meet the 50% requirement. So I guess,
I guess what I was trying to demonstrate to the building inspector,
Yeah.
that there could be a dialogue here that would bridge this gap, even though it's
Yeah.
not necessary.
okay. And you didn't seek lot coverage variance when you got the FAR variance, is that correct? You did
Yes,
not
we did.
Huh?
We did.
So you specifically sought a variance from 270, Matt, help me out, the number, the part that covers hotel lot coverage is a separate code feature from the FAR feature. You sought a variance for both of those codes?
Yes, we did.
Okay, I'll look at that. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Susan Stewart, do you have any
I have a
issues?
question with regard to loading berth.
Yep.
So and it's similar to Susan's. You're saying that the hotel area is 95,753.
Right.
If I take your total square footage and subtract that out, I get 19,000 something. What are the elements that are in that, the difference between 115,000 and change and 95,000 and change?
The retail space.
The retail space. So when you say that you don't need a loading berth for the retail space because it's less than 15,000 square feet, how do you reconcile that?
Because each of the retail spaces are less than 15,000 square feet.
Okay. Because the code talks about uses, not spaces. So your position is that
Each shop is its own retail
it's
space. Yeah.
and if you had to put in another loading berth, where would it go?
Next to the one that's on Wilmington Avenue.
Okay.
Yeah. Mr. Flott, can you get your microphone closer?
I'm sorry, next to the one that's on Wilmington Avenue.
Okay. I mean, for me, I need to, you've presented a lot of stuff, and it's terrific to get that level of detail. It would be nice to sit with it a bit and actually get out a calculator, because when I do quick calculations on my iPhone, sometimes the piece that's left out can't be reconciled to the sum of the spaces. And so for me, it would be helpful where there's a statement that the square footage of the building is 95,000, for instance, or hotel, to know specifically, these were the rooms that were left out because the kitchen, whatever, or whatever it is. But, so I personally need a little more time to kind of go over what you've presented and understand it.
Mr. Stockdale.
I want to go over some of these numbers. I want to review the code. Yes, I want to, excuse me, I'm sorry. I want to review the numbers like my colleagues here and reflect on the calculations a little longer. I very much appreciate the thought you have given to this proposal and the accommodations and the redesign you've made. I, in particular, would like to go back and review the code provisions about commercial space and the 15,000 square foot figure. I need to remind myself of the language there. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, since we're here and it's in people's mind, my name is Richard Forston, one of the attorneys for the applicant here, I tabbed that provision about loading berths because I anticipated that it might become an issue. The code says a retail or service establishment or other commercial use with over 15,000 square feet of gross floor area requires a loading berth. In other words, if I've got a store and it's 15,000 square feet or more, I need a loading berth according to your code. But if I have a series of 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 commercial uses that are all separate in a row, like the boardwalk, I don't need a loading berth. And by the way, where would I put it? Because, ideally a loading berth goes for a particular store. So, I'd have one loading berth for what, the 4,000 square foot store, and the rest wouldn't have them. It doesn't make sense. And in fact, that's why your code uses the singular and says a retail establishment greater than 15,000 square feet needs a loading berth. It's a such and such a size. You're going to need a loading berth because you have a lot of deliveries. But if you're a small store or a series of small stores, you don't need a loading berth. So that, and we cited that, it's 270-36. We're going to follow up, and I know this is new to you, but as you can imagine, we've spent the last 2 or 3 weeks going through all the comments that we had gotten from you previously. And we wanted to make sure when we came here today that what we are telling you is correct. And so we've gone back through, and I appreciate that you want to double-check the math. I double-checked the math. Others triple-checked the math because we want to get this right just like you do. So while you asked that question, I just wanted to read you the language, and so hopefully that answers the question.
Isn't there, regarding the commercial use, it talks about for the uses specified, the lead-in paragraph, not for units of space. It talks about for uses specified. And with specific regard to 15,000, it talks about other commercial use. So this is one building, and you've argued in other spaces regarding lot coverage that there's a distinction in mixed use between hotel and commercial. One could read that three loading berths are required. Nobody's suggesting that, but you could read those provisions that way too.
Well, I think if I was the code drafter and I had intended for there to be a loading berth when the total of all the different stores added up to over 15,000, I would say retail or service establishments, plural, of over 15,000 square feet. Because I'd want to emphasize that it's more than one or two. I'd want you to know that if you did multiple retail establishments, if they add up to 15,000, that's good enough. We're going to make you have a loading berth.
Well,
But the way this is written, it's written in the singular, and so I think it gets interpreted in the singular.
And I guess it also says other commercial use, which is
Well, other
neither
commercial use-
singular, plural.
I would argue
Perhaps.
use is singular, uses is plural. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to get that language out since it has just been raised.
Yeah, I just, along those lines, the parking, the code for individual shops is very clear that it's for individual shops by using the word each. But each does not appear under retail or commercial use. That's one thing. I guess also, you're suggesting then that the loading berth that is next to First Street Station, which has about 18 different shops, they just put it there out of the goodness of their heart.
Well, places may want to put it in as a matter of operational concerns. Putting aside whether the code requires it or not, and I don't know if this particular code requirement was there when that facility got built.
Yes, it was.
Things get done all the time for other reasons. The question is how to, I read the code, it's part of what I do for a living, and I read it as singular. It is singular. And so it's a retail establishment over 15,000 square feet. None of the retail spaces here are more than 15,000 square feet, right?
I have a question about the historical pattern of practice here. Does the city have any precedent with respect to how it treats commercial space in this setting in similar situations? In other words, has it traditionally aggregated the space, or has it looked at it separately? I don't know, I'm just curious.
I'm going to have to defer to my colleague here for a little historical perspective.
If I may say something, one of the factors when considering this, of course, is the streetscape. And the comprehensive plan clearly defines real requirement that we try to beautify Wilmington Avenue. Frankly, we could probably put a dozen loading docks along there. You're losing parking places, and then, of course, it's not helping the streetscape. So this is part of the consideration. And we did discuss whether it was 1 or 2 loading docks for quite a while. And in the course of events, it was decided that the less the better, because quite frankly, how long and how often are these loading docks even going to be used? And you got to understand that most people walking up and down the street don't want to see a series of loading docks there. And I think that if you, somebody did a calculation, one of our earlier hearings, this is hearing number 6 now on this, we've done this for almost 5 years now. In the course of events, somebody did a calculation on the other commission that every parking place we eliminate is like $9,000 that this town loses. So that's one of the reasons why at an earlier hearing, the single loading space was something that was calculated in, and that's how we planned it.
Ms. Davis?
Yes, I'd just like to comment on
I'm
this
sorry,
issue.
Matt, did you have anything else?
Oh,
I'd just like to answer your question. The answer is I can't give you an answer at this point. I'd like to go back and view how most recently, I would believe, the Avenue was reviewed and give you an answer after a review of that.
Thank you.
Ms. Davis?
yes, I'd like to follow up on a couple of things relating to the loading berth issue. The legislative purpose of the legislative purpose of a requirement for loading berths is to keep big trucks off the street. And while I'm sensitive to streetscape issues and parking, on-street parking issues, the alternative to having one loading berth for 19,000 square feet of retail space is the probability, if not the certainty, that you are going to have large trucks, you know, the Cisco-sized trucks, sitting out on Wilmington Avenue trying to deliver their the vendors' inventory in and out of the building. Now, that might not happen, I grant you, we don't know for sure, but that's the purpose of the loading berth requirement. And whether it is one small shop or 6 small shops or, you know, 19 shops with 1,000 square feet each, that use is 19,000 square feet. And as far as I think many of us are concerned, that's a commercial, a retail use with over 15,000 square feet. And I'd also like to point out that my understanding of the First Street Station situation is that it was built in 1996. It's one building with 30,000 square feet, but it's made up of individual small shops. And that in that case, because it was built as one building by one owner, it was required to have a loading berth, regardless of how many small shops it had within the total square footage. So I think that's something to consider that I think, you know, this commission will consider.
Anyone else?
Well, I guess I wanted to just ask one last clarification on the building. It is intended to be one building, right? The entire mixed use. So all the retail space in the hotel is one building and one building permit. Is that correct?
It's one building permit, yes.
Yeah, okay.
But there may be separate ownership groups.
But it is one building.
Right. And let me just finish. I realize that the plans that you have shown show that retail, 19,000 square feet of retail space carved into several smaller shops. But there's nothing to prevent you having one shopping mall within that space where everybody would have storefront within a mall situation. So the fact that right now the plans say there are going to be multiple spaces, we don't know right now whether it's going to be 4 or 5 or 6, or as I say, a mall situation where you have vendors opening up onto a mall.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Jim.
Mr. Morrison.
This is a different subject. Are we ready to move on?
Loading berths.
Can we go back to the fourth floor, please?
Sure.
Plan? There we go. You have indicated that your solution to the bar situation, of course, we cannot have a bar that is not a part of a restaurant, is that you will have basically a restaurant there with the bar. Can you explain how you accomplish that? This does not look like there's any change in this plan from what you've had for some time.
Our intention was always to serve food out of this bar.
Where does the food, I mean, the requirements for the restaurant would require much more space, at least 35 tables, 35, I believe, tables for 35, and so forth. There are a lot of other requirements. I just don't see how you can accomplish that with what you show.
Clearly you could have a magic chef behind that bar, and you could heat up sandwiches and serve food out of that bar. I mean, clearly, it's the size of a food truck. People serve food out of food trucks. They're the same size as this space. So it's obvious that one could, if that was the way that the menu was structured, to be able to serve any kind of food out of that, as well as, beverages.
I believe the code requires a kitchen to be attached.
Yes.
And there are also
Full
no
meals.
public restrooms there.
That's right.
Not salads and sandwiches.
Right, yeah.
The restrooms are located here,
Okay.
which are
Did
connected
not see
via a
that.
bridge
Okay, so
right
there are
here.
those
Okay.
are public restrooms there? Okay.
Those are
Yes, they
public
are.
restrooms,
Didn't
yes,
know.
but
Public
I just,
restrooms right there.
this,
Okay.
I doubt would satisfy, what you've had there, which is just simply a bar, pretty much self-standing.
I'm sorry.
Well, to me, I don't see how this works and meets the code.
It does work. It can work. It will work.
Well, I don't see it. Can we go to the first floor?
Sure.
This also has not changed, at least since the August of last year plans, and it shows, and I realize what you're trying to indicate, which is, you have a restaurant, you have a separate bar, and you somehow have the lobby, all of that you say one combined space, therefore it meets code. I think if you really look carefully at what the code requires, certainly at the very least, the bar has to be a part of the restaurant, and I believe that you would have to have a separate entrance to the hotel reception area. So once again, I don't personally see that this meets the code.
So the code does not say that the bar has to be contiguous. When you're saying, what you're really saying is the bar needs to be contiguous to the restaurant, and if the orange square in the middle of the yellow was touching the orange where the restaurant is, presumably you'd be fine with it. What is troubling you, it seems to me, is the fact that it's not contiguous to each other, if I can drill down to the nub of your
Well, the code
concern.
says that the bar area has to be within or in the restaurant.
All right, but if I say that that bar area is part of the restaurant and people are going to eat food there as well, is it in the restaurant or not? I mean, it's not contiguous, right? So that's, I think, your point, right?
Well, my additional point is that it's also mixed with the hotel entrance. And one of the requirements says that the restaurant should be entirely enclosed. And I read that to mean that that should be separate from the entrance to the hotel. I would have some concern about having an open restaurant and bar. I don't know how you police that during the hours when one or the other or both of those are closed. That's probably just perhaps a design issue. or a hotel management issue.
It could be
But
an
this
AB
just doesn't seem to
right,
work.
and not to cut, it could be an ABCC issue also. I mean, in other words, if that's going to be a bar, it's got to comply with not only your code, but also all the requirements of the ABCC, which is something that we're looking at now. So, I mean, this is the current plan. We believe it complies with the code as written. You know, might we have to adjust it? We might if the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission tells us we can't do it this way. But I think for purposes of your code, it complies. But we'll go back and look at that and come back. I mean, I wasn't anticipating this as a question, to be honest, so we'll come back with a more detailed explanation when we meet again.
Mr. Strange.
Yes, and I apologize. I'm an engineer, not an attorney. And you've been throwing
Good.
around.
My father was an engineer too, and he was always disappointed that I didn't follow in his footsteps.
As attorneys, both Hal and yourself have been quoting specific parts of the code. And this is a major undertaking and a major project that you folks are proposing, and it's very glorious in its structure. But I'd like to remind everybody, and especially those who aren't lawyers, of 270-5 of our code, which applies all the time. That is construal of provisions, higher standards govern. And what that really does is cover, when you get into these little nits where nobody knows, well, what's it really mean? It's, are there higher published standards within standard agencies, whether it's the International Building Code, et cetera, that are published and known that should be applied in a particular case. And most times, in my 11 years on being on the Planning Commission, it's very rare when that comes up, but this is such a complex proposal. I think it does come into play here, as the instances that have been quoted so far. There are some differences occurring. That's it. Thank you.
Well, and just to respond, you're right, 270-5 is in your code. It's also a matter of Delaware law, and the Supreme Court just affirmed this past summer. Zoning codes get interpreted in favor of the property owner when there's ever any doubt. So I think we have to remember that too.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Anyone else on the commission? Mr. Forston or Mr. Dukes, I have a request. To whom should I direct my question? You're going to file a new plan, correct? A new site plan revised in accordance with what you've shown us here today. Is that correct?
I wouldn't call it new. I'd call it slightly revised to address the concerns you have raised, but it's still the same application.
I understand the nuance, but I'm not sure. We could disagree on that. But when you file, could you also file in your response to the requirements of Section 23630, the general purposes of site plan review, and the 21 factors that must be considered by the Planning Commission when reviewing a site plan? That's in the code, it's there, and it would be helpful, rather than us having to ask you, well, what do you think about protection of natural resources? You can give us something like as you have done here today.
Happy to do that.
Good, thank you.
I have another.
Yes.
I have another question, and I'm sorry, it's about loading berths. I noticed that the retail space is on the Rehoboth Avenue side, and the loading berth that you've drawn is on this side. And that across that retail space, even if you factor out the one along the boardwalk, how do goods and materials get from the loading berth to the retail spaces?
Without opening Pandora's box further, we had envisioned that this loading dock would be shared, okay? And there would only need to be one because it's required for a 95,000 square foot hotel building. And that there is if you see here, there's a service, this gray line right here is a service corridor. It runs all along behind this space, behind all of these spaces, and it connects down here to the loading dock. So if you're wondering if the desire is to have some loading for the retail, it exists in this building, and the flexibility exists for it to happen.
I think the desire is
To have
that,
another loading dock.
with regard to the loading, a big issue that my colleague raised was, you know, I guess we'd like not set up a situation where there are more trucks double parked on Rehoboth Avenue.
Right, and this will help accommodate that. That's the idea here, is that it is a shared space. We don't think there needs to be two.
Well-
If you insist on there being two, we'll put two.
Right.
But the bottom line is, it's better urban design to have one and to have it shared between all the uses on this build, okay? Now, if you require us to have two, I will repeat, we'll put another loading dock in there. But it's a better site plan with one loading dock. And it will be a more used loading dock than to have one, as opposed to have two that are used 25% of the time.
One other point to make too, the existing retail stores that are there now, there's no loading berths. So somehow, all these years, they've been managing to operate without any loading berths at all.
And that's the norm. I mean, the
Well,
majority of the shops in Rehoboth don't have loading berths because they're all less than 5,000 square feet, or roughly 15.
This discussion is helpful, again.
Yeah.
A further question about your thinking in that regard. You say, in your view, it would be better to have one shared space, and I understand that. But how would that be administered, and who controls the conventions and understandings with respect to that? So that the space really provides the synergies and the that you think it will.
So hotels, we are working with a very reputable operations company, and they know when their deliveries are. They tell their people when they need the deliveries, and they're there, and there's a schedule, right? And so there will be a property manager who will work with the hotel operators and all the various tenants to make sure that the loading is scheduled. And that's the way a mixed-use building works typically. And this is a mixed-use building.
One of the things that I'd like to point out is, and Commissioner Bryan was absolute when he pointed this out, on 236-30, it establishes what this commission exists and why it's here. And one of the things is the preservation of the streetscape. And the more loading docks you put on a streetscape, the less streetscape you're going to have. And that's number 3 when you look at that.
I have a question about something I didn't actually notice until now. With all the focus on loading berths, I happened to look behind it to see that trash room and dumpster. I frankly have always wondered, and I just hadn't asked before, about how that's going to be accessed if it's inside, first of all. But I now see that it's separated from the loading berth by what appear to be stairs and a ramp. And I just wonder how it's going to be. First of all, the loading berth seems to block it, but there's also stairs blocking it. How is that going to be accessed for trash pickup?
So it'll either be rolled out, or a truck will go in there and get it. It would be able to be accessible. This is not an unusual situation. It's a refrigerated room so that the trash doesn't smell in the summertime.
Okay.
It's got a drain in it, so it's easily cleaned.
Okay.
This is a first-class organization here. So the trash is going to be, it's right next to the front door of the hotel. If you don't think we're going to take care of this, you're.
Oh, no, I'm not
really
asking that. I'm
mistaken.
just asking, I'm really asking
That's how it is.
how. Yeah.
Either a truck will go in there and they'll front load and they'll pick it up and they'll slide it, or they'll do something. I don't know what they'll do.
But there's a set of stairs that separates where the truck would be from where the trash is.
Say what?
There's a set of stairs that separates from where the loading berth is to where the trash is.
That light gray is a corridor.
Yeah, but there's stairs there. There's steps.
No, those are stairs. That's the egress stair from up above. That's actually a stair that's coming down from up above.
From up above.
yeah.
Okay, so there's no stair right there.
There's no stair.
Okay.
I mean, that stair, there's a stair there, but it goes
But it
up.
goes up. It's
Yeah.
above.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
It's either the ramp, or this is actually, there's a loading dock here. So
Right.
what happens is that this is a little lower because this whole elevation of this building is at 13, and the elevation of Wilmington Avenue is lower. So there's a natural ability to have a natural sort of loading dock height there. It'll be lowered a little bit, so it's perfect. But in any case, that's the way it'll work. So that stair is not what you're thinking.
And I do notice there's some other little rooms. There's like 4 other rooms next to the trash room, but they aren't labeled, but they have doors. Are those just all big, different trash rooms, or what are they?
You know,
Storage?
I'm happy to like have a meeting with you, and I'll show you the drawings for the whole building.
No, I'm just asking the
No, I mean,
question.
it's like a management office. It could be, I don't know.
That's a
what
back office?
Yeah, it could be a back office.
okay.
Yeah.
That's all I'm
One of
asking.
them's security for sure. Like the
Okay.
first door to the left is probably security, because what happens is everything that comes in the hotel has to be checked in. So there's a window on that door, and, you know, so they check in what's going on, and so that's really kind of the management.
Okay, so all those are just basically little individual back offices.
Or one of them might be refrigeration.
Okay.
Like I said, I mean, I could open up the floor, you know. give
Just
me a minute
asking the
to
question.
Answer the question, but it's on my
Asking the
computer.
question. Okay. That's all I have.
All right.
Chair.
Anyone, Mr. Strange?
Just one comment. The original drawings and even this one, and an example of where you can, when something isn't there, you make an assumption is, the previous drawings we had in the large exploded views, there were no access ways or doors showing to any of the retail stores. And I just assumed there was no access to the retail stores.
Oh, no, there will be.
Right, but it wasn't on the drawing.
Fair
And there
enough.
was no indication of it, so thank
There are
you.
no doors in the front either. If you notice, there's no doors going out to the side.
Well,
So we need to be there.
I assumed they'd be there, but the
So
internals
the
I
same
thought was
assumption
something
happens
else.
in the rear. because- And there will be, they also have to have their own bathrooms. I mean, there's a full code requirement for.
Right, so this drawing set, the drawing set that we get from when we actually have a public meeting will be more detailed.
No, it'll be the set right here.
Be the same set, okay.
No.
All right, so,
Yeah,
okay.
And again, the retail space in particular, I mean, this is, I'll say, quite common in my experience. You get a site plan approved that shows the retail space, but then when it's time to move in a tenant, that tenant then will go to Matt
Well, they're- right.
with his own plans. This is how I'm fitting out my space. Here's where the bathrooms are, all that sort of stuff. So before you get a CO for any of that retail space, it is going to have to go back in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
One more question. With regard to the plus review, you said that in your early presentation that it's all up to date because you had a conversation with them and they said no changes needed. Or the changes aren't material such that they would affect their prior letter. Does that include the second level of parking, or was that
Yes.
discussion had with them as well?
It was.
Do you
I
have
will-
anything that updates their recommendation
I will
that tells
get-
us that?
We will get you a letter from the Office of State Planning. We just haven't had enough time for them to sit down and type it and get it to us. But we've had the conversation. They were, I mean, from their perspective, looking down with a bird's eye view, you know, the footprint of the building isn't changing. The site plan itself isn't changing. You know, what we do on individual floors really doesn't matter to the Plus folks. But they said that they would send a letter confirming this. So we'll have that to you.
Thank you.
And that's a good question. I appreciate that.
Mr. Ellison?
Just one comment I would like to applaud the owners and the team for abandoning the idea of a surface parking lot on Baltimore Avenue, particularly at a time when the city is very much involved in trying to revitalize that street as well as Wilmington. So I applaud that decision. It will give you two an opportunity, hopefully, to do something really wonderful on that other site that will help enliven Baltimore Avenue. So thank you.
Mr. Forston,
Sir.
or to whomever you wish to delegate this. I just need to get it straight in my mind about the FAR, your variance for an FAR from 2.0 to 3.0, and how that somehow brings in lot coverage and gives you more permission to do other things on the lot coverage side. When the ordinance, I'm sorry, the meeting that was conducted by the Board of Adjustment was noticed as a request for a variance pursuant to Section 270-21B5 of the code to get an increased variance by 50% of the FAR from 2.0 to 3.0. I don't see lot coverage mentioned in that. And I'm wondering, I just need to know, and if you perhaps by a supplemental filing could clarify how that would work, that an FAR variance somehow gives you more lot coverage variance.
Well, maybe, and this is why we have these meetings and have these discussions. What do you mean when you say lot coverage issue? Because I'm not sure what you're referring to when you say that. It would,
27021C as opposed to 27021B.
okay, just bear with me a second here.
I have it if you need it, sir.
I
Okay.
always like to print it out and bring it with me just in case.
Richard, I got it here.
So on the lot coverage issue, it says a hotel or motel can be up to 50% lot coverage. Ours is less than 50%. And all other commercial uses are 100% or more. So in terms of the lot coverage issue, we've got a hotel that's less than 50%, and we've got retail space that makes up the balance. So both of those are permissible, and I think we're fine.
But the less than 50% is by omitting, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Flott, omitting the balconies.
No balconies on the ground floor.
No. I'm talking about all the other floors.
Okay, but
It
that
applies
goes
to each floor.
but that goes to floor area ratio, not lot coverage.
No, it goes to how far is apportioned to meet the lot coverage requirement. That is an apportionment of FAR in order to meet 27021C.
27021C is your lot coverage at ground level. Floor area ratio is the total of all your floor areas to the square footage of the lot
I
itself.
understand that, but when we had a discussion a couple of years ago on some code clarifications, I actually specifically asked the question, was lot coverage just the surface? And I was told by city staff that it was measured from an aerial view of each floor.
And that was from the, was Dom the one?
No, that was not, no, it was not Dom.
Because he's given us some information here that's contradictory too.
No, it was not Dom. It was after he left, actually, but it was not Dom, but it was but anyway, it's fine. I'm just saying that you have said that the lot coverage on the upper floors does not include balconies. I'm just clarifying that is what you said.
So, Mr. Forston, could you give us a supplemental filing that
Yeah.
addresses your position on this, please, sir?
Absolutely. No.
Anyone else? All right, I'd like to give an opportunity to the public. If anyone wishes to address the Planning Commission, please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. Again, I'm Dr. Michael Treos. I'm the co-owner of one of the adjacent properties. Peter, this is more directed to you, if I may, and it's real simple. Currently, from what I'm seeing on the plans here, the current one-level garage, including the slab and the 1-foot freeboard, to the surface level, it comes out to 12.7 feet. Am I correct?
No, you're not correct.
Okay, what, from the surface level down to the slab and the freeboard, what's the distance down?
Freeboard is 1 foot, 12
Correct,
inches.
and then you have the slab, it's underneath the slab.
So the slab is inclusive of the freeboard.
Correct.
Okay, so the top of the floor is elevation 13. The
Right.
freeboard is 12.
Right.
And so we are 12 inches above the
That is
freeboard.
12 feet.
Elevation 12
Right,
is the floodplain requirement. Okay?
correct. The design elevation is
12
12.
inches of freeboard that's required equals 13 feet. That's
Right.
our elevation 13.
Elevation 13, okay, that's what I was asking, elevation 13. Now, I understand there's going to be a second level. Now, do you know what the total depth is going to be down to the slab and the freeboard for the second level?
The second level, below grade, the slab level, at this point is elevation -8.
Okay, so the totality from the surface down to the base of the second level, including the slab, and includes the freeboard, is what's the total distance down from the surface for the second level?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Again, you're proposing a 2-level garage now, is that correct?
Correct.
What is going to be the total depth of both levels, including the slab, which includes the freeboard?
20 feet.
20 feet, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Trejo, typically, we don't want the public to be addressing the
I'm
applicant.
sorry.
Right.
The only reason I did that is in hopes of getting answers right now without
Correct.
having us go back in and ask you to submit something. So
Thank you so much, and
I
that's all it
appreciate
was.
your
Thank you so
cooperation.
much, appreciate it,
Yes,
thank
sir,
you.
thank you. No, sir. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alison from Go Fish Restaurant, 24 Rehoboth Avenue. I have a question on this slide, actually. So you have that area where you're going to deliver to the back of these units in blue, and I'm wondering what that is that butts up between my building and that first retail store. Is that a walkway, or can you explain that to me?
Again, Mr. Falat, you don't have to do this. There may be some type of a merit
It's a terrible
badge.
answer, okay, just for the record. I pushed some kind of a button here.
I'm sorry, I can't.
I'm
hear
sorry,
you.
I pushed a button when I was presenting. This doesn't mean this right here. It's somehow it got pushed to the front of this drawing. It's a so let me just see if I can fix this right now. Hopefully it'll work. No, that didn't work. Yeah, it's a graphic, it's nothing. That is absolutely, I don't know how it got there. Somewhere in this, the ether here, you're talking about this element right here. If you notice, it's attached to the whole plan. It's just, I don't know what the hell that is, but it's nothing. I apologize.
All right, so it basically butts up to my building. There is no
So
space
to answer
there.
your question, if I took everything else away, this is the service corridor, that's the property line, and your building is right there.
Okay, and then right behind where that trash area is, that is a window to my apartment, right there, where that trash area is. So you've got smell and you've got noise. It's a residence, and it's been a
This is a
residence.
solid wall right here? That's a
Right
solid
there, I think those two dots there might even represent the opening of, well, you don't have it, but literally right behind that trash room is a window to the apartment, a double window to the apartment.
Do you have a backyard there?
I'm sorry,
Is there a backyard there?
I didn't hear.
Do you have a backyard?
A backlight?
Backyard.
I'm sorry, I don't hear what you're saying. My hearing's really bad, I'm sorry.
A backyard, do you have a backyard, a patio in the rear of your?
No, it's just a window. But it's right there. I mean, the property line is, 10 feet back from that?
I think the testimony earlier, for the record, was that that area that's marked dumpster is going to be refrigerated. It's going to be enclosed. So people aren't going to be able to look down into it from a window in an adjoining building because it's going to be enclosed and it's going to be kept cold because, as we all know, it gets very hot in Rehoboth during the summer and we don't want our trash
So when they
smelling.
pick those trash dumpsters up, they're going to be enclosed?
It's inside the building.
When they pick the trash
And
dumpsters all the way up in the air,
that's
that's
not
going to
how-
be
that's not
in
how
an
it's go-
enclosed building?
It'll be at the loading dock where that happens, if at all, if that's how they choose to remove it. Okay? I mean, your folks aren't going to be able to see it. There's stuff above this too, don't forget. So they're not going to be looking down at some dumpster from their window. They're just not.
And the smell and the noise and then the loading?
If it's refrigerated, it has to be enclosed, and the whole point of it being refrigerated is so nothing spoils and it won't smell. This is right next to the hotel lobby and restaurant.
And
So,
it's right under the window, the back window to my
I
apartment.
understand. It's not next to the window, and you won't be able to see it because it'll be enclosed.
Well, just for the record, my building is 1,350 square feet of commercial, 1,350. I get 2 to 3 deliveries a week, and each delivery takes between 30 minutes and 45 minutes to unload into my store. And that's 1,350 square feet. Many times I come to work down Wilmington Avenue, it's a parking lot. So I get my deliveries in the front, because that's the only way I can get a delivery. And I have an agreement with Cisco that they come at 4 in the morning. That doesn't always work that way because you have truck issues, things, whatever. But I do that, so I'm not taking up space because my delivery takes half an hour to bring in. And that's with 2 guys delivering. That's just the way it is. And that's an awfully long walk that they're going to have to, with their trolleys. I mean, they pull up right out front. I mean, to navigate around those with all that weight and everything, it takes time. That takes time. So, you know, I'm just concerned. I don't know how you're going to queue up the deliveries to avoid a parking lot on Wilmington Avenue with trucks waiting for other trucks to unload.
Okay.
That's an awful lot of space for, and that's just the way it is. We're busy in the summer, and it's bad down there already. Anyway, there's other things as well. I'm not going to bring them up today because there's not time. But obviously, Dr. Trejos's presentation is a grave concern, and now we're talking at another level as well, underneath that. And it's just, my building's perpendicular to the ocean. It's just, am I just going to erode my foundations, erode away? That's a worry I have to go to bed with. So,
Thank you very much,
yeah.
ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, the public comment period is closed. Mr. Forston or Mr. Dukes or both, if I give both of you a task, can you get it done twice as fast?
Well, it'll take twice as long.
Okay. According to the rules of the Planning Commission, all written materials to be considered by the Planning Commission need to be filed 30 days prior to the meeting at which they will be an agenda item. Just wanted to remind you of that. And I just wanted to confirm again, I've tried to just sit and let the discussion go back and forth today. You do not intend to seek any variances for this plan. I think that's what we were told at the beginning.
That's correct.
And I just want to be sure that's correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
And to follow up on that point, Mr. Chairman, I mean, our goal is a code compliant plan. We want to get this plan approved. We want to get it underway. We think it's going to be a boon for the city. You saw Peter showing you some overhangs that have to be removed or shortened. And that's the plan we want to get approved. Now, if after the fact you say to us in approving that code compliant plan, hey, we actually think it looks better with the longer overhangs, it's more artistically pleasing or whatnot, we might then be encouraged to go to the Board of Adjustment and ask for that variance. But we don't need it, and we want to get a plan, a code compliant plan done. If during further discussions you all say to us, hey, we'd really like it if you do this or that, we understand you need a variance, we'll support it, approve our plan, we'll go get the variance, or try to get the variance, I should say, because as you heard Peter, he thinks it looks better with the longer overhangs. And it does. But we want to get a code compliant plan first and get underway. I don't want to have to go to the Board of Adjustment first to get something we really don't need.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Commissioner, one of the keys here, and I think that all of us are working on minutia here, but the whole thing is we're trying to meet the comprehensive plan of Rehoboth. This is a time that this commission can destroy Rehoboth, or the board can destroy Rehoboth, or make Rehoboth better for the next century. We know that when you build a building like this, it can't be changed. It stays there for 50 to 100 years. And we're fortunate. And we're fortunate because my client is 90 years old and he has the financial wherewithal to build a building that is double what any normal person would build for a financial return. He's willing to do it long-term. And he's engaged these folks here and asked them to design something that will meet the criteria of his division of Rehoboth. He's lived here longer than anybody else in this room. He graduated from Rehoboth School. And the fact of the matter is, Rehoboth School doesn't exist any longer. But the fact of the matter is that he is willing to take all his assets and go ahead and build this building because he wants to do something for the people of Rehoboth. You remember his, some of you, because we've been doing this for 4 years now, how he spoke about when he was a boy working there in the restaurant and things like that. And all of that is his love. And my answer is, because I live in Rehoboth, and frankly, I have a lot of property in Rehoboth. I've been very fortunate in my life. Best thing ever happened to me, I grew up in Rehoboth. But I'll tell you right now that this is a very dangerous time for a city because you can have a bunch of square monolithic boxes that go code compliant, and people that you call them carpetbaggers if you want to, just move in, build their box, and get the hell out of town. And you're stuck with it for 50 to 100 years. It changes everything. We're lucky. You're lucky you have Dominic Polari next door, that he's willing to put his money into this thing to make you look nice. Because if you were looking for somebody from a real estate investment group to come in, they would not take the time and energy to do this. And believe me, financially, it's not in their favor to do this, not for Mr. Polari, or is it financially favorable for my client? But they're doing the best they can to try to have Rehoboth have a very nice concept, and they're trying to meet the comprehensive code. This is supposed to be a site plan review, and I respect that. We're talking about, bars and stuff like that inside the building. I understand that, but the fact of the matter is all that can be worked out. But we're trying to get this thing off the ground. My client's 90 years old. Mr. Polari's fairly old. And quite frankly, the city here is lucky to have people willing to take their net worth and put it on the line to have something special for this town.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Forston, you look like you have something to say.
I just had one point of clarification. I should have asked it earlier. You made the correct statement that in theory, at least according to your rules, you're supposed to get everything 30 days in advance of your meeting that you're going to consider. I'm not sure when your next meeting is, but for all I know, it's 30 days from today.
No, this meeting's actually, you lucked out. The next one is June 9th, and so the 30 days would be May 10th, next Wednesday. But I was going to ask that question if that was too tight a time frame.
And so, yes, with your all's permission, I would ask for, and you've given us quite a bit of homework, and unfortunately, I've got some other hearings I have to attend next Monday and Tuesday and Thursday. So if we could have an extra week to the 17th, would that be acceptable to you all?
Yes, sir.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you.
Mike was going to have something.
No, if I may, I just had one question from Mr. Falat. When you said you're going to get new drawings, everything, and it really plays off of one of the questions that the owner of the adjacent lot, Go Fish, made the comment. Last time when you were here, you were talking about building to lot lines. Is the new design, apparently there's some change here, is the western direction which abuts that property, is the building still at the property line or has it been changed?
No, it's still at the property line.
It's at the property line. That's the wall, your wall comes close to abutting the other wall, I guess is what I'm saying.
Our wall is on the property
It
line.
hasn't changed.
There's no change.
Okay, good.
Just also one clarification in terms of the materials. I think the example you showed in response to Allison's question about the line and how it was different on the electronic version just underscores our need to have the print plans. And all copies for all of us of the print plans is part of the submission next time.
At the correct size as well,
Yeah,
so
the
that they're legible.
scaled plans, I guess
Yeah,
is what I'm
scaled
saying.
plans.
Yeah.
We're happy to give you more drawings.
Huh?
We're happy to give you more drawings.
Yeah. Ones that look like this.
And if I
It'll look
may, the
just like
electronic files as well associated with those drawings.
Right.
All right. I think that concludes this matter. We are adjourned.
We don't have any, we're not asking for any reports?